Hello.
I miss being a vampire. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome to Season 3 proper. And, it's a mixed bag so far. What I will say is I am enjoying it because I enjoy playing Sorcerer and theory crafting builds, pushing the limits. It makes me happy, and I'm very excited for, well, that once I get to the full end game. I also think I might be having a better experience than other classes because Sorcerer is uniquely good at ignoring the bullshit that is going on in Vaults and Nightmare Vaults, and it feels a lot smoother because of our toolkit, but we will get to that. Yes, I already have the new Meteor helmet, and yes, it's fantastic, and yes, I will talk a little bit about it and what to do if you find it early towards the end of this build. However, the primary focus here is, hey, so you and your Seneschal buddy, you want to get into Torment as soon as possible, transition from my previous leveling build and start working your way through Torment where the drops and the experience actually matters, as low as level 50 while being completely unkillable to the enemies that are now 25 levels above you. Of course you do! So here we are, transitioning into a late mid-game, early end-game Firewall build using the new Seneschal companion to its maximum, and I really do mean that. It's surprisingly effective for Firewall, despite generally it feeling a lot less, well, climactic than the vampiric powers, but hey, we do what we can, and there is still a few little combos that I can't quite test yet because they require much better, more endgame gear and unlocks, but I think at level 100 we might actually start to see a big shift in our feelings towards our new friend. But for now, he applies some buffs and debuffs, and that's pretty cool. In any case, yes, let's jump right into this then. For context, I beat the Torment Capstone at like level 53-ish with this. Started farming Nightmare Vaults on Torment at level 60 or so, and it really has gone smooth. The way Firewall actually works, the fact that it is both ranged and melee, depending on what you need and where you need to be stood, does let you really position and be very defensive and evasive while just melting through everyone, which is really key for fighting through enemies that are supposed to be above your pay grade. It's also quite good specifically for vaults because you can just stand in one place in the final vault room with all the traps, not hit any of them, and just coat the room in firewalls, and everything just sort of passively dies, and it feels a little bit like a cheat code. It's doing shockingly large amounts of damage, and while it's no ball lightning, rest in peace. I am very happy with its performance, and it has so much further to go, comboed with other skills later on. So let's not beat around the bush any longer and have a look at proper Season 3 Firewall, or at least proper as far as early Torment is concerned, to get you there and situated. For the first time then this season, the skill tree. Whack 2 points in, well, essentially anything you want. We drop our clash now as we have infinite mana to just permanently cast Firewall, so we will never actually swipe with it, so it's kind of wasted points to get it and all three. So yeah, any two and over to your cause. Now, if you think that you're tanky enough, you can, instead of Potent Warding, get 1 Devastation, 2 Dominance, but as we're just poking into Torment, we will have really bad resistances and we need all the help we can get, so do take Potent Warding, or at least I would recommend it at this stage. Then grab 1 rank in Fireball, just so we can have it, and that becomes our first enchantment slot. The extra pop damage is very much needed. With Fireball tickling down slowly, we only need it to kill 1 enemy, and then the chain of death can begin. Then over to defenses, where we see a, well, perhaps familiar sight from long ago, or not that long ago, the quad defense. Firewall, take it up to shimmering. The heal is nice, especially at this stage. Teleport, this is invaluable for both general mobility, speed, Raiment of the Infinite, if you eventually get that, and of course skipping traps in vaults now. It's just better than ever. Honestly, best mobility skill in the game, and I will never stop stringing its praises. Stringing its praises. Singing its praises. Anyway, shimmering for the consistent DR. Get your ice armor, and for now, enhanced just to help with your mana being on top for Firewall spam, and then get your Frost Nova to extra vulnerable, and also to trigger a passive for massive damage we will get later. 3 out of 3 glass cannon, because we can, it's worth it at this stage, the extra damage is just nice, and we're not too worried about dying. Then we get Elemental Attunement, just so these can start resetting, it's nice that it can happen. Over to here, where we want the free lucky hit. Obviously at this stage, we can't have perfect gear with perfect affixes, so we need all the lucky hit we can get, and this free 15% is very nice. Then the double defensives of Mana Shield for that 21% DR from the Mana Firewall spam, and then protection, so we get consistent barrierage, both to live and for the various synergies. Over to the star of the show, which is of course Firewall. This is also our second enchantment slot to spawn more Firewalls, and we want to take it to mages, so enemies keep burning for as long as possible. We don't need the mana help of wizards. 3 out of 3 in Inner Flame, so it does 9% multiplicative more damage, and then 3 out of 3 crippling, so it will immobilize, triggering Aspect of Control, which is very potent in this configuration. Over to here then, where you want to get 1 in Permafrost and 3 in Hoarfrost. 9% multiplicative more to chilled, 18% to frozen. That is huge. The frozen, of course, will be triggered by our Frost Nova, but we will still be taking heavy advantage of just the extra chill damage too once we get to our Seneschal. Then get your ultimate in Inferno and take it to Supreme. We might as well. The infinite mana is nice, and it especially synergizes with a certain aspect we will be taking. Then get 1 in Fiery Surge, 3 out of 3 Endless Pyre for more burn damage, and then just 2 out of 3 Warmth. Technically, if you think you are surviving well enough, you can get rid of these points and reassign them, maybe a couple extra in Fireball, but generally anywhere that you want. But I like to have them while still kind of grinding towards proper endgame. It's nice to stay healthy automatically, especially for, well, Inner Flames here. Then we can get our key passive, finally, of Combustion, for again, just lots of more burn damage. There isn't really another option worthwhile here. So that kind of does it for that. Very simple, very straightforward, and just very effective, but made very much more so by the Seneschal, which I am rather excited to talk about. Going straight into your gear then, of course, you won't have every aspect going. You will have your codexes and some that you've collected. I'll just recommend a good one for each slot, grab the ones that are applicable from the codex, and then the rest if you happen to have them, or if not, just use kind of what you have. But this is the way I do it without having access to a full suite of uniques, as a proper endgame Firewall would have like an extra 3 or 4 uniques on top of what I have here, so I've filled in for now with aspects for you guys. Gems-wise, get your extra fire damage over time in your weapons. At this stage, all resist in your jewelry is probably most effective, because we just need all resist, or specifically if you're doing something where you know you're going to get blasted with a particular element, put that one in. We can't really afford the armor at this stage, and then health in your armor. So, affixes, just to mention, of course, as I say, we can't really guarantee them. We're upgrading our gear still very often. You just want a high item level, either dagger and focus, or wand and focus. Wand is ideal for the extra lucky hit, but this dagger is by far my highest item power one, so I am using it. The damage to close is fine, but I would prefer the extra lucky hit to power the Firewall enchantment, but either will do. And then just generally get affixes that help, and don't be shy on defensive ones if you can at all get it, and then the usual anything that helps with mana or resource gen, and then extra health is good as well. For now then, cooldown reduction 2. Always, always, and always. Aspects then. Let's begin with Edgemasters. You may think this is weird, thinking that we are just spamming Firewall, which spends mana, and Edgemasters wants you to have full resource, but that's how much resource generation this build has, that without having all uniques, it's a really good aspect to use, and is up most of the time. You really feel like it, and it is a Codex 1 too, so yeah, definitely pop this on. We also want to have Engulfing Flames. Don't go out your way to get this, it's just fine. I had it, so I put it on, and without uniques to replace it, it's just, yeah, it's okay. Do a little bit more burn damage. As soon as they drop to half health, then they really drop and start the fireball chain. It's especially good against bosses, which Firewall can struggle to take down quickly, as once they get to half health, they still have a lot of health left. And now you're doing 30% more multiplicative, so it really is here for that boss damage when you need it when you're solo. Then, from the Codex, or if you've got a better one, you want Prodigies, so all your cooldowns give you more mana back, funnel in to Edge Masters too, and just keep you on top of things, though it's not our main source of mana. Then you want Conceited, if you have access to it, extra damage while you have a barrier. We're going to have a barrier most of the time. We're Sorcerers, this is just big damage. Then on your necklace from the Codex, or again, if you got a better one, Control. We're going to be immobilizing people, stunning people, freezing people. This is a huge increase and one of the biggest ones that we have access to, especially at this stage. Over on your helmet, you either want Shared Misery or Lucky Hit while you have a barrier. Either help, neither are critical. You can choose what you like the look of. If you are lucky enough like me to get an early raiment, do use raiment. Otherwise, you can have a chest piece that either has free firewall after spending mana if you are having mana issues, or if you're not, I heavily recommend the new aspect Juggernaut, because just a load of armor for free permanently passively is huge, especially when you need all the DI you can get at the moment, as we're still farming better gear. The evade increase you really don't feel on a sorcerer because of teleport making up the difference. We then also have Disobedience on my legs here. If this wasn't Disobedience, it would be that Juggernaut, but definitely have one of the two. Disobedience, of course, in the Codex earlier on, so this might be the easier one to go for. Also in the Codex then, Storm Swell for extra vulnerable damage while you've got a barrier. This is big. We're going to have a lot of vulnerable from our Frost Nova, and it basically helps turn that Frost Nova button into this pack of elites will die. Triggering Storm Swell, triggering your Hoarfrost. It's really needed in otherwise slow dot build. Then on my boots, we have this. Crowd control duration for that immobilize, the stun, said Frost Nova DPS window with the vulnerable, and then the unstoppable is nice to get a little bit of extra damage when we are finally out of CC. You do feel it. And this comes together to give you a very powerful, very serviceable, very easy mode, don't have to think too much Firewall build that lets you just kind of walk through anything you need to do, even if you are level 60 in Torment, and it will get you to where you need to be very easily, especially because it's so comfortable to actually pilot. So, talking of that, here we are then in training. As you might expect, it's your only offensive ability, so just spam your firewalls consistently and never stop, and yeah, watch them melt. Of course, try and aim them, so if I want to get the full cross-section of these guys, I want to be in front of them, hit the middle so it goes left and right and gets them all. If I do it from this angle, it's just going to go down there and miss 4 of them. You know, kind of, again, basic firewall stuff. Past that, use Ice Armor on cooldown, save Frost Nova for a particularly tricky group of elites, or to build stagger on bosses. Teleport as you need, either to Raiment group or to get out of a sticky situation. Remember, all of your buttons give you an extra barrier, so you can use them all defensively, and all of them give you mana, so you can use them all in a utility sense, so you really can just kind of generally get away with hitting all your defensives on cooldown, and you'll be sort of fine. While progressing through a dungeon, just 1 or 2 firewalls on each group of enemies, and then you move on. It will be enough to kill them. You don't need to stand there and watch them burn, so you just sort of progress through and just trust that the death is happening behind you. Obviously, if there's any loot that you want to go back and pick up, you need to, but in terms of maximum speed, kill, XP efficiency, couple firewalls, move on, couple firewalls, move on, and that'll do well for you. And then, yes, your Inferno, whenever there's a huge group, or your bosses, or you just need your mana to have a break. That takes us then to our seasonal mechanic and our Seneschal. He is quite key to this whole setup. When it comes to our governing stones then, we want to first choose a utility one. If you are struggling to live, you want to use auto defense. I cannot express how good this is. The shield is all well and good, but if you don't have the damage reduction, even an extra 40% effective health, you're still going to get splatted. Whereas auto defense deletes the literal projectile so you take 0 damage. It will catch that skeleton ballista. It will catch that firebomb coming towards you. It will also delete projectiles from traps in vaults, which means you can't get hit by them and lose your stacks. That's quite nifty, and I cannot express how much effective DR this gives by just making it so that a good quarter of the time you cannot get hit by ranged attacks. You really feel it, and I'm so impressed with it. So if you are struggling to live, auto defense. You want to put it with duration, you want to put it with voluminous, so the actual circle is larger, and then I currently have safeguard for a little bit of extra DR, but if I actually had tactical, that would replace voluminous, so it came off cooldown a little bit more often, and we had duration, tactical, safeguard, auto defense. The same then tunings if you want an offensive option, but take yourself a flash of adrenaline. This is fantastic, just an extra 12% at this rank, multiplicative damage increase to everything that you do. Yeah, awesome. It's a bit boring, it's just a numbers buff, but again, it really does help and you feel it. So if you're comfortable living, use flash of adrenaline instead of auto defense. And again, you want it with duration, safeguard, and finally tactical, which I sadly have not managed to grab yet. For your other slot then, you want to have the ranged option Tempest. This is phenomenal. I really can't express it enough. It's like a mini Barber, and we know how good Barber was, but it doesn't quite do as much damage, of course, and you can't feed into it, but what it does do is synergize beautifully with the tunings that we give it to. First and foremost, then, we want to whack it in, and we will give it resource support. Every time it does damage, you get mana back. And by that I mean, every enemy this spreads to and affects, you get mana back. It's not as effective against training dummies because they don't die and therefore it doesn't spread Tempest, but in every other normal situation, this essentially equals infinite mana while there are enemies alive. It will just consistently spark spread, feeding you mana, doing lots of damage, and just being awesome. You're seeing him fire it off consistently. Look at the cooldown on this. It's just constant mana. Past that, then, we do gripping. This will mean everyone that gets zapped gets pulled to the Seneschal, which means it gets pulled to you, which means it gets pulled into your firewalls. If you do have raiment, you can go for something else if you prefer it, but I still find it really nice to have this automatic extra grip. Then, finally, the pièce de résistance, frigid support. Turn a bit of the damage cold and apply chill. This is where that extra constant chill to make Hoarfrost so valuable comes from. It really works wonders and is one of the most exciting parts of the new Seneschal. We want this happening constantly, and you will see we have frozen target nummies from this going on. Look at the frequency of it. It really is wonderful. So if I just start powering away with my firewalls, using the abilities as we go, getting the mana back from Prodigies, the mana back from the Seneschal, you see just how hard it is to run out of mana, and when you eventually do, you've got your very low cooldown ultimate, Edgemasters is back at maximum potency, and it stays there for a long time. And this is without Tempest spreading, because again, the dummies can't die and spread Tempest. Otherwise, it literally would be near impossible for me to run out of mana. So this combination, yeah, absolutely beautiful for Firewall, and what I would heartily recommend. Of course, when we eventually get Evernight, of course, when we eventually get Genesis, these will make an appearance, but that requires farming the Echo on Torment, and that will be a little bit, needing to get lucky with it, of course, too. So, that just leaves the Paragon board, or at least how it currently looks at this stage. I have myself a smattering of points, so stay with me until you either run out or I run out. We want the initial board to be like this. I do want to spare the points to go get the extra or resist, because at this stage it is very useful, but I've been stretching for a bit more damage so I can really blow up things in Torment, in Nightmare Vaults, even at this stage. So we go up through Elementalist and then through the intelligence here to activate, well, Elementalist. Amping up these nodes is really important, and the extra multiplicative damage is really nice. Sadly, the Seneschal doesn't do the cold part of it, but the fire and lightning is still 10% more, and that works out well for us, the teleport contributing the lightning. As long as you have a glyph here that is buffing these two nodes, you can't go much wrong. Then we head up and get to the Heart of Sorcerer, which is your Enchantment Master. You want to go straight for Elemental Balance, and then you also want Elementalist and eventually Ruinous, and then we go across to the glyph slot and grab Erudite. The glyph itself here, ideally, is Adept for bigger flame walls, and of course more damaging flame walls, but bigger is better when it comes to giant swaths of fire. I think we can all agree, so activate that ASAP. Of course, this will change layout and glyph later on once they're level 15, once there's more Paragon points, once there's uniques in the build, but right now at this stage, this is the way to go. Then we head up and right to our third board, which, as you might expect, is Burning Instinct, especially relevant to Firewall, and we're going to head down to the glyph slot, where I have gone for Territorial. That extra damage reduction is very useful at this stage, and the extra damage to close isn't anything to sneeze at either. Grab the Cinders and Smouldering Embers, and then once this is activated with the extra dexterity that I can get, I will be heading up and getting Kindling, then heading up and getting Keeper of Flames, and then finally activating Burning Instinct if you still need points to spend. That then does that. So there we have it, but before I leave you, I did promise I would speak a bit about our new Meteor crown. I still would like to get my ancestral version, but at least I have the effect. It is very good. It works beautifully with Firewall, and that will more than likely, we'll see, I've still got some testing to do, be the next build I bring you at a more, actual endgame state. It's very, very fun how you can mix it in and the synergies available. That said, if you get it like I did and just want to immediately use it, you can. The easiest thing to do without crazy going to town on your build is simply equip it, of course, and then go to your skill tree, change nothing else except get rid of the Inferno, because we need the extra slot on our bars, and the 4 defensives are worth more than the Inferno, and we also kind of don't need the Inferno once Meteor is in play, and then with those spare 3 points, you just grab the Meteor, grab Enhanced, and grab yourself Wizards. Then you're good. It's now on your bars, and remember, because it's a cooldown, it gives you a barrier. It gives you mana with prodigies, and it gives you a lot of fun. So that's an easy, simple swap. So you just Firewall along, drop your Meteors whenever you have charges, then keep Firewalling, and you will be great. So I will see you in a much more refined, proper version of perhaps likely this soon, but until then, I hope this finds you well. I hope you enjoy Season 3 in every way that you can, and until we meet again, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. A goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.